Now, we've been talking about wasps and bees, and the lovely Frank, our producer, has spent ages getting some information because I wanted to know what the difference is between a bee buzz and a wasp buzz. So you can phone in. I'm not going to tell you until we've had an interview. So this is the first sound. Is it bee or wasp? This is the second sound. I was going to say B, as in A and B, but I'm not going to say that. This is the second buzz. Is this a bee or a wasp? Now, listening, we've got Paul Bates of Cleankill Pest Control in Seaford, who's tackled many a wasp nest. Did you get that, Paul? Which was the wasp and which was the bee?
No, out of anything, the first one sounded more like a bee. But they're very, very similar from where I'm sitting.
Oh, well, yes, stay away from all of them, but we'll play them again later on. So are you a fan of wasps?
As a company owner that deals with wasp nests, then yes, I am. However, as a naturalist and many of our people that work for us live in the countryside, we also understand that wasps in the countryside do a very good job. Which many people don't know.
So you are of the agreement that our little carnivorous buzzers must be taken care of and looked after. So if you, Paul Bates of Cleankill Pest Control, get a phone call to get rid of a wasp's nest, will you always get rid of it, or sometimes do you say, absolutely no, leave it there?
We normally ask the question, whereabouts is the nest first of all? If it's down the bottom of the garden in a tree stump, not causing anybody any problem, then the advice would be to leave it. However, if it is next to a household, blocking somebody's front door, then the answer is then yes, it needs dealing with, because people often have the tendency to swipe out at a wasp, and when you try and swat a wasp away, that's when it gets aggressive and it sends out a pheromone telling all its friends, come and help me, I'm being attacked.
Really? That's extraordinary. So, I mean, our lovely doctor before said, waft, don't swat.
Yeah, if you do swat at them, then they will get aggressive because the workers will be trying to defend their nest.
Right, okay. So do you think, Paul, that wasps have had a bad press?
They do get a bad press because their sting is exceptionally painful, and I say that from experience.
Oh, tell me, how many times have you been stung?
Over the years, when I've tried to climb into a loft space once, I touched something that I thought was an electric wire going through, and that was a wasp.
Oh.
I've gone into a shed at the bottom of somebody's garden, got stung through my protective equipment on top of my head, and I passed out.
Really?
And one of the things with wasp stings is that they get worse the more you get stung, as opposed to things like fleas, which you can actually build up a resistance to them, which a lot of cat owners will know. You don't feel the flea biting you as much after you've had a cat for several years. With wasp stings, they get worse each time you get stung.
Why is that?
It's the poison. You don't build up a resistance to it in your body. And wasps are there to sting, and they can carry on stinging, and that's one of the problems. If you get stung on an eye or in the throat, it can close up the windpipe.
So when a bee stings, it loses its sting in that one sting. Is that right?
With a bee, it's a matter of life and death. It will only sting if it feels it is under immense threat, and it's a last resort for a bee. With a wasp, no, you're attacking me, I'm just going to carry on attacking you.
My goodness, so you passed out. And how do you deal with a wasp sting?
With a wasp sting, antihistamines, they said, is it acid, is it alkali? Well, actually, it's a fairly neutral sting, and things like antihistamines, we use an antihistamine cream.
Right.
You've just got to try and reduce the sting. If you get stung on the hand, remove any rings immediately, because the sting will cause the skin to start swelling up.
But I know that with bumblebees, my mum had this, that she suffered from anaphylactic shock if she ever got stung by a bee. Can that happen with a wasp?
Oh, yes, it can, very, very, very much so. And the trouble with, at this time of year with wasps, is that you could have up to 10,000 in a nest.
Wow, did you hear that silence? And you're not meant to have silence on the radio.
No.
10,000. So when you do go and you have found a wasp's nest that you think is compromising a household, how then do you get rid of it?
We will pump an insecticidal dust into the nest so that as the worker wasps are coming back with food for the queen, they pass through the dust and take the dust into the middle of the nest. And essentially destroy the nest from the inside, so that you don't get lots of insecticide going all over the place. As well, nowadays you sometimes see people like window cleaners and roofers advertising, "We'll do your wasp nest for £30." Yeah, that's fine, but we've got £10 million public and products liability in case there's any insecticide gets into water tanks, or maybe you might even have bats in the loft. And you don't want to start killing bats.
No. So you're suggesting that if people do have a wasp's nest that they think is compromising, not to go on the cheap, to actually find someone like you guys?
Yes, that's our advice. A British Pest Control Association member or a National Pest Technicians member will be the ones that they should be going for.
And they can get that all that information's website on the internet?
If you put in British Pest Control Association onto Google, you can find pest control companies near you.
And so my last question, Paul, given that you will, and I really love this, that if the wasp's nest is in a place that doesn't compromise anybody, just let them get on with it. I said to our first contributor that I thought there were less wasps this year. Have you found that? Actually,
this year has been, for us, our best wasp nest year for about 3 or 4 years.
Really?
They tend to go in cycles. We had the snow in March. After that, it's warmed up and it's stayed warm ever since, which means there's been plentiful food, the weather's been fine. If there is snow or cold or very wet weather in April and May, that destroys a lot of the nests.
Right.
But this year, the aphids have been very heavy on the roses, which is the initial food that the worker wasps take back to feed the grubs.
But in terms of the cycle of life and circle of life, and in terms of the chain, we need wasps.
Yes, we do. Most insects have a purpose, and wasps feed on carrion, they feed on dead animals, they feed on rotting meat that's out in the forest, etc. They are a pollinator in much the same way as bees, not as much as bees, but if wasps disappeared, then again, the human race may be in trouble.
Oh, Paul Bates, fantastic to talk to you. Well, you were totally wrong, my darling. The first sound that you heard, let's hear it again. This is for Paul Bates of Cleankill Pest Control in Seaford.
Oh, that's wasps.
That's wasps. And this is our beautiful, lovely, I shouldn't do this, I should be much more impartial, but this is our bumbling bees. Aren't they lovely? Paul, thank you so much for talking to us.
Pleasure, Jenny.